Ethan Walker rode his hoverbike across the red, dusty plains of Red Mesa, the desert wind whipping against his face. The frontier planet was quiet now, but the air still smelled of sand, metal, and the faint tang of alien flora that had adapted to the harsh environment. Ethan was a space trader, but he was more than that. He had a reputation as a man who could handle danger and get the job done, no matter how impossible it seemed. He had traveled across dozens of star systems, yet the memories of his childhood back on Earth often returned, especially on planets that reminded him of home. Red Mesa was one of those places. The wide-open desert, the tall cliffs, and the scattered settlements reminded him of his youth, growing up near the American Southwest. He remembered running along similar hills as a boy, dreaming of adventures beyond the stars. But now he had grown into a man shaped by countless experiences, battles, trade deals, rescues, and escapes. Despite his rugged appearance and confident attitude, a part of him still longed for something he could not quite name, a connection from the past that had been lost when he left Earth. Ethan steered his hoverbike into the bustling spaceport of Red Mesa's main settlement. The spaceport was a mix of old and new. Rusted shuttles sat beside sleek transport ships, and traders from distant planets shouted their prices while engineers hurried to repair malfunctioning engines. Humans, aliens, and hybrid colonies moved about, creating a chaotic but strangely organized atmosphere. Ethan dismounted, adjusting the strap of his satchel, and began walking toward the customs office. He had deliveries to make, and he was a man who kept his promises. As he moved through the crowd, he felt a strange sensation, like someone was watching him. He shook his head and chuckled. After years of traveling, he had learned to ignore these instincts. They were usually wrong. But then he heard it. A voice, soft, clear, and hauntingly familiar. "Don't you recognize me, cowboy?" Ethan froze. The voice was like a thread pulling him back through time. He turned slowly, scanning the crowd, and then he saw her. A woman stood there, framed by the glowing neon signs of the spaceport. Her hair was dark and long, tied back in a braid that reminded him of a girl he once knew. Her eyes, sharp and determined, locked onto his, and suddenly the years melted away. It was her. It had to be her. "Ayanna?" Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. The woman smiled, a mixture of sadness and joy in her expression. "It's me," she said.
"Your childhood friend."
"I've been looking for you." Ethan's mind raced. Memories flooded back. Campfires under the stars. Secret games in the woods, promises whispered as children. He had never forgotten her, even as he traveled across the galaxy. But he had not expected to see her here on this distant planet, grown into a woman whose presence commanded respect. How did you find me?" Ethan asked, still trying to understand. "I've been following your path," Ayanna replied. "I knew you were somewhere in the frontier, and now I need your help." Her tone shifted from nostalgia to urgency, and Ethan noticed the small, sleek starship behind her, marked with emblems of a militia he had never seen before. "What kind of help?" Ethan asked cautiously. "There's a group of mercenaries planning to take control of Red Mesa's water supply," Ayanna explained. "They have advanced weapons and ships. The settlers here don't stand a chance without someone like you." Ethan studied her carefully. She looked strong, capable, and unafraid. Everything he had remembered, but multiplied by experience and determination. He felt a surge of respect and admiration. He had faced danger many times, but the fire in her eyes told him that this challenge was real. "I don't know if I can," he started, but Ayanna interrupted. "You can," she said firmly. "You always could. And you know this planet needs you. I've seen what humans can do when they fight for something they believe in. We can't let them take the water." Ethan hesitated. He had a choice: continue his trading mission and ignore the conflict, or step into a fight that could change everything. Deep down, he knew what he would choose. Humans had always risen to challenges, even when the odds seemed impossible. That resilience, that courage was part of who he was and part of who Ayanna had always been. "All right," he said finally. "I'm in, but we need a plan." Ayanna nodded, and together they moved through the spaceport, gathering supplies and recruiting a small team of settlers willing to defend their home. Ethan marveled at how quickly she commanded respect. People listened to her because they trusted her skill and judgment. As they prepared, he felt a connection to her that went beyond childhood memories. They were partners now, united by purpose and shared history. That night, under the twin moons of Red Mesa, Ethan and Ayanna rode across the desert plains on their hoverbikes, scouting for enemy positions. The landscape stretched endlessly before them, red rocks and deep canyons illuminated by the soft glow of the moons. Ethan felt a thrill he had not experienced in years, the thrill of adventure, of standing on the edge of danger, and of knowing that together they could make a difference. Ayanna guided him to a hidden canyon where the settlers had set up temporary defenses. She explained the enemy's strategy, how they planned to strike, and what weaknesses they might exploit. Ethan listened carefully, analyzing every detail. Humans had a knack for turning simple tools into clever weapons, and he was already thinking of ways to use the terrain, improvised drones, and other technology to their advantage. As they worked late into the night, they shared stories of their pasts. Ethan told Ayanna about his travels, the planets he had visited, the dangers he had faced. She told him about her training, her time learning to pilot and command, and the people she had helped protect along the way. Each story built trust and reminded them of the bond they had shared as children. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed across the canyon. Ethan and Ayanna exchanged a glance. "That's them," she said softly. "They're moving faster than we thought." Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when human courage and ingenuity would be tested. He mounted his hoverbike, feeling the familiar hum of the engine beneath him. Ayanna followed, her own bike slicing through the desert night. Together they raced toward the enemy forces, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The first glimpses of the mercenary ships appeared on the horizon, sleek, menacing vessels that glinted under the moonlight. But Ethan was not afraid. Humans had survived against all odds, and he knew they could do it again. With Ayanna by his side, he felt a strength he had not realized he possessed. As they approached, Ethan and Ayanna signaled their team, initiating the first stage of their defense. The settlers, armed with both traditional weapons and futuristic technology, took their positions along the canyon ridges. Ethan and Ayanna coordinated attacks, using clever maneuvers to confuse and delay the enemy. Every move relied on trust, timing, and human intuition, qualities no machine could replicate. The enemy responded with laser fire and drones, but Ethan's quick thinking and Ayanna's fearless leadership allowed them to stay ahead. They moved like shadows through the desert, striking where the enemy least expected. And through it all, the connection between them grew stronger. Childhood memories and present danger fused into a partnership that was both powerful and unbreakable. As the first part of the battle came to a close, Ethan and Ayanna paused on a ridge overlooking the battlefield. The mercenaries were retreating, regrouping for the next assault. Ethan looked at her, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride, relief, and something deeper, love that had waited years to return. "We're not done yet," he said, knowing the fight for Red Mesa was only beginning. "No," Ayanna replied, determination in her eyes. "But together we can face whatever comes next." And as the twin moons shone above them, Ethan realized that this reunion was more than fate. It was proof that humans, with courage, cleverness, and heart, could rise to any challenge, even in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The next morning, the desert of Red Mesa was quiet, almost too quiet. The twin moons had set, leaving a pale sun rising over the horizon, painting the red cliffs and sands in shades of gold and amber. Ethan Walker and Ayanna stood on a ridge overlooking the small settlements below. The previous night's skirmish had been only a taste of what was to come. The mercenaries were regrouping, stronger and more determined than ever, and the settlers needed every advantage humanity could offer to survive. Ethan adjusted the strap of his satchel, which carried small but powerful devices he had improvised for defense. Drones, sensors, and communication units were spread across the canyon, each one ready to detect enemy movement. Ayanna had already positioned her pilots and scouts, ensuring that they had eyes everywhere. Together they were more than a team, they were a human network, connected not just by technology but by trust, intuition, and experience. "We need to anticipate their next move," Ethan said, scanning the horizon. "They'll try to take the water reservoirs first. It's their only way to control the settlers." Ayanna nodded, her expression calm but intense. "I've mapped their supply routes. They'll approach from the north using the canyon passes. If we can block them there, we can slow them down and buy time for the settlers to protect the reservoirs." Ethan grinned. Humans had always excelled at thinking creatively under pressure. Technology could be powerful, but clever minds, quick reflexes, and a deep understanding of the environment often mattered even more. That was humanity's strength, and it was what they would rely on now. They split into two groups. Ethan led the ground forces, made up of settlers armed with laser rifles and improvised explosives, while Ayanna took to the skies in her sleek starship, coordinating attacks and providing aerial support. The settlers were nervous at first, but seeing Ethan and Ayanna's confidence gave them courage. Humans had a way of inspiring each other, especially when the odds seemed impossible. As the first enemy scouts appeared over the canyon ridge, Ethan signaled his team. Using the rocky terrain to their advantage, they launched a series of ambushes. Drones buzzed overhead, emitting bright lights and confusing sensors, while settlers fired from concealed positions. The enemy's drones faltered, and the ground units hesitated, unsure where the attack was coming from. Ethan's voice came over the comms, "Move left. Wait for the second signal now." Every move was coordinated, relying not on machines alone but on human judgment. The enemy advanced cautiously, but they had underestimated the adaptability of humans who refused to surrender. Ethan's team led them into narrow canyon passages, where the enemy's larger ships could not maneuver. Explosives detonated, causing small rock slides that blocked the mercenary path. Above, Ayanna weaved through enemy fire, her starship agile and precise. She called out positions, giving Ethan and the settlers real-time updates. Together, they created a rhythm, a flow of action and reaction that the enemy could not predict. It was a dance of strategy, courage, and skill, a testament to human ingenuity. As the day progressed, Ethan noticed a small group of mercenaries trying to flank the settlers from a hidden ridge. He grabbed a communicator and whispered, "Ayanna, they're moving around the east. Can you intercept?" "On it," she replied. Her ship soared, cutting across the desert with unmatched speed. She fired disabling pulses at the enemy drones, forcing the flanking group to retreat. Ethan smiled. Humans working together could outthink even the most advanced technology. In the middle of the battle, Ethan and Ayanna found a brief moment to regroup near the reservoirs. The settlers had managed to secure the water supply, but the main force of mercenaries was still approaching. Ethan looked at her, feeling the connection they had built over the years. "I don't know how we got this lucky," he said. "It's not luck," Ayanna replied. "It's us. Humans are stubborn, clever, and unpredictable. That's why they won't succeed." Her words reminded Ethan of his childhood promise to her, to always protect and never give up. Now that promise had grown into something bigger, protecting not just each other, but an entire community, a symbol of humanity's courage on the frontier. The final wave of enemy forces appeared in the distance, ships glinting menacingly in the sunlight. Ethan and Ayanna knew this would be the decisive moment. The settlers took their positions, ready to defend the reservoirs at all costs. Ethan checked his improvised devices one last time, while Ayanna calibrated her ship for maximum agility and firepower. The battle began in full force. Lasers cut across the sky. Explosions rocked the canyon, and the ground shook under the impact of enemy fire. But Ethan and Ayanna moved with precision, anticipating the enemy's every maneuver. He led small squads through hidden passes, striking at weak points, while she provided cover from above. Their coordination was seamless, a combination of experience, intuition, and a bond that no one else could replicate. At one point, a large enemy ship attempted a direct assault on the reservoir. Ayanna zipped past it, firing concentrated pulses that disabled its engines. Meanwhile, Ethan and his team launched a ground-based strike, hitting the ship's vulnerable points. The enemy faltered, retreating under the unexpected strength and creativity of humans. Amidst the chaos, Ethan saw Ayanna in a small hovercraft, leading a group of settlers to reinforce a weakened position. Her movements were confident, her decisions quick and effective. Humans were capable of incredible adaptability, and Ayanna was the perfect example. Ethan felt a surge of pride, not just for her but for what humanity could achieve when united. Hours passed, and the tide of battle began to turn. The mercenaries, exhausted and confused, started to retreat. Ethan and Ayanna pressed the advantage, cutting off escape routes and disabling their ships. The settlers, inspired by their leaders, fought with courage and cleverness that surprised the enemy. Finally, the last of the mercenary forces were driven from Red Mesa, The settlers cheered, and Ethan allowed himself a rare moment of relief. The reservoirs were safe, the planet secure, and humans had once again shown that bravery, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the most advanced threats. As the dust settled, Ethan and Ayanna stood together, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The desert glowed in warm colors, a silent reminder of the day's victories. Ethan turned to her, a smile breaking across his face. "We did it," he said. "Yes," Ayanna replied, her eyes reflecting the last light of the sun. "And we did it together." Ethan felt a warmth he had not experienced in years. The bond between them, forged in childhood and strengthened through battle, had proven unbreakable. Humans were more than just clever and strong. They were capable of love, loyalty, and courage that no machine could replicate. As night fell and the stars filled the sky, Ethan and Ayanna knew that their adventures were far from over. Red Mesa was safe, but the galaxy was vast, full of challenges and opportunities. Together they would explore new worlds, face new dangers, and continue to prove that humanity, with its heart and mind, could rise to any challenge. Ethan looked at Ayanna, her face illuminated by starlight, and realized something profound. Humans were not just survivors, they were heroes in their own right. Their courage, their creativity, and their bonds could light the darkest corners of the galaxy. And with Ayanna by his side, he knew that no challenge, no enemy, and no distance could ever break the human spirit. The settlers celebrated their victory, but Ethan and Ayanna took a quiet moment on a ridge overlooking Red Mesa. Hand in hand, they felt the power of what they had accomplished. Not just the battle, but the reunion, the trust, and the promise of the future. Humans had triumphed, and their story was far from over. With the twin moons rising once again, Ethan whispered, "We'll face whatever comes next together." Ayanna smiled, the same smile he had remembered from childhood, full of warmth and strength. "Together," she agreed. And under the stars of Red Mesa, humanity had proven once again that courage, ingenuity, and heart could light the way, even in the vast, endless frontier of space.